Sevastopol, Crimean Peninsula, May 1942. Lyudmila Pavlichenko lay motionless in the rubble. She had not moved for 24 hours. Dirt and blood caked her uniform. The Mosin Nagant rifle pressed against her shoulder, scope trained on a specific pile of debris 300 meters distant. A German sniper was hunting her. She was hunting him back. The duel had lasted 3 days. Both snipers understood the mathematics of survival. One miscalculation, one moment of impatience, one unnecessary movement. Death would be instant. The German had been fighting since Dunkirk in 1940. His logbook, recovered later, would document over 500 kills. Experience, skill and patience made him one of the Wehrmacht's most lethal marksmen. But Lyudmila Mikhailovna Pavlichenko possessed something beyond technical competence. She was defending her homeland against an enemy that sought to exterminate her people. And she had already killed 257 Axis soldiers in less than a year of combat. By June 1942, when mortar shrapnel finally forced her evacuation from the front lines, Lyudmila Pavlichenko would achieve 309 confirmed kills, including 36 enemy snipers, making her the deadliest female sniper in recorded history. This is the story of how a 24-year-old history student from Ukraine became Lady Death, how Soviet propaganda transformed her into an international icon, how she confronted American sexism during a 1942 speaking tour that helped convince the United States to open a second front in Europe, and how one woman's deadly precision helped turn the tide against Nazi Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union. Bila Tserkva, Kiev Governorate, Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, July 12, 1916. Lyudmila Mikhailovna Belova was born into a working family. Her father, Mikhail, was a factory worker and Communist Party member, her mother, Eleanor, a teacher. The Russian Empire was collapsing. Revolution approached. The Great War consumed Europe. Pavlichenko later described herself as a tomboy, competitive in various activities, especially against boys, determined to prove that girls could be just as good, if not better. At age 14, the family relocated to Kiev. There something happened that would alter the trajectory of Pavlichenko's life and change the course of world ease. War II in ways impossible to predict. A neighbor boy boasted about his shooting achievements at the local range. This was enough to send young Lyudmila running to the range herself. If boys could shoot, she would shoot better. She enrolled in a sharpshooter class. She earned her Voroshilov sharpshooter badge, a type of civil decoration and marksman certificate. What began as adolescent competition became genuine skill. What started as proving a point became exceptional marksmanship. The Soviet Union, unlike Western nations, actively encouraged women to participate in military training through civilian sports organizations. Thousands of amateur shooting clubs operated across the USSR. The communist ideology of gender equality, whatever its other failings, created opportunities for women that capitalist societies denied. At age 16, Pavlichenko married and gave birth to a son, Rostislav, in 1932. The marriage didn't last. Her parents raised Rostislav, while Pavlichenko pursued education and career. She took a job at a local arms plant and in 1937 enrolled at Kiev University, taking an interest in history and intending to become a teacher. She competed on the university track team. She maintained her marksmanship skills through courses at sniper school. She was in her 4th year of study, 24 years old when everything changed. June 22, 1941, Operation Barbarossa, Kiev, Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic at 200. The last train west chugged across the River Bug to German-occupied territory. An hour later, as summer dawn lifted across central Ukraine, Hitler violated his non-aggression pact with Stalin and launched Operation Barbarossa. 3 million Axis soldiers, 6,000 guns, 2,000 Luftwaffe warplanes, and thousands of tanks flooded into the Ukraine. Pavlichenko was walking to classes at Kiev University when Nazi fighters buzzed in low and fast. Strafing the streets, the decision was immediate. Pavlichenko was among the first round of volunteers at the Odessa recruiting office, where she requested to join the infantry. The registrar refused. He pushed Pavlichenko to be a nurse. Not unusual. Even the Soviet military, despite official gender equality policies, often relegated women to support roles. Pavlichenko refused. She took out her sniper's diploma, Voroshilov marksman's badge and other shooting honors, and dropped them on the table in front of the recruiter. The recruiter remained skeptical. They tested her. She was taken to the front, handed a Mosin Nagant rifle, and told to shoot 2 Romanian soldiers working for the Axis forces at a distance of about 400 meters. 2 shots, 2 kills. Pavlichenko was accepted into the Red Army as a sniper and assigned to the 25th Rifle Division. She never claimed these first 2 kills as part of her official count, calling them test shots rather than combat engagements. She became one of 2,000 female snipers in the Red Army, of whom only about 500 would survive the war. A 75% casualty rate, the deadliest assignment in the Soviet military. August 1941, Odessa, Black Sea coast. Initially, Pavlichenko was assigned to digging trenches and communication routes. Due to weapons shortages, she was armed with a single RGD-33 grenade. It was very frustrating to have to observe the course of battle with just a single grenade in one's hand, she later wrote in her memoirs. In late July 1941, a comrade was severely injured by shrapnel and handed her his Mosin Nagant Model 1891 bolt-action rifle, August 8, 1941. The defense of Odessa began. Axis forces, German and Romanian troops, launched their siege against the strategic Black Sea port. Soviet forces, outnumbered and outgunned, established defensive positions. On her first day on the battlefield, Pavlichenko found herself close to the enemy, paralyzed by fear, unable to raise her weapon, a Mosin Nagant 7.62mm rifle with a PE-4X telescope. A young Russian soldier set up his position beside her, but before they had a chance to settle in, a shot rang out and a German bullet killed her comrade. Pavlichenko was shocked into action. "He was such a nice, happy boy," she recalled, "and he was killed just next to me. After that, nothing could stop me." She got her first 2 official kills later that day when she picked off 2 German scouts trying to reconnoiter the area. Over the next 75 days of fighting at Odessa, Pavlichenko racked up 187 confirmed kills. The technique she developed would define her combat career. November 1941 to June 1942, the siege of Sevastopol became one of the Eastern Front's bloodiest campaigns. German forces badly outnumbered the Soviets. Pavlichenko spent 8 months in heavy fighting. "We mowed down Hitlerites like ripe grain," she said. At Sevastopol, she trained other snipers, who were credited with killing over 100 Axis soldiers during the battle. She was promoted twice, first to senior sergeant upon reaching 100 kills, then to lieutenant in May 1942, when her tally reached 257. Her reputation spread. Soviet propaganda celebrated her achievements. The Germans took notice. They began broadcasting messages directly to her over loudspeakers. "Lyudmila Pavlichenko, come over to us. We will give you plenty of chocolate and make you a German officer." When bribes failed, threats followed. "If we catch you, we will tear you into 309 pieces and scatter them to the winds." Pavlichenko was pleased to know that even the enemy had her kill count correct. The Germans also assigned their best snipers to hunt her specifically. Pavlichenko won every sniper duel in which she engaged, accounting for 36 German snipers among her 309 total kills. One German sniper she eliminated had been active since the Battle of Dunkirk in 1940. His logbook documented over 500 kills. The Soviets nicknamed her Lady Death. The Germans called her the Russian bitch from hell. Pavlichenko was wounded 4 times during her service, suffering from shell shock, but remaining in action. Then came June 1942. Pavlichenko was hit in the face with shrapnel from a mortar shell. Soviet High Command recognized she had become too valuable to lose. Before she could fully heal, they ordered her evacuation from Sevastopol via submarine. In the time she spent fighting, Pavlichenko had obtained a record of 309 confirmed kills. September 1942. Washington, D.C. In late September 1942, a young woman called Lady Death arrived in Washington via railway. In her pocket, she carried a dictionary inscribed by Stalin himself. Stalin and President Franklin Roosevelt had agreed on a propaganda mission. The Soviet delegation, Pavlichenko, Nikolai Krasavchenko, a young communist leader, and Vladimir Chelintsev, another sniper, would represent the USSR at Roosevelt's International Student Assembly, but Stalin sent them with another mission, to convey the life and death struggle on the Eastern Front, convincing Americans to open a second front in Europe and relieve pressure on embattled Soviet forces. Pavlichenko became the first Soviet citizen to be welcomed at the White House. She met President Roosevelt and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt for breakfast. The American press, however, did not know what to make of a female soldier with 309 kills. One reporter even criticized the length of the skirt of my uniform, saying that in America women wear shorter skirts and besides my uniform made me look fat. They asked if she used makeup on the front line. Malvina Lindsay, who wrote the Gentler Sex column for the Washington Post, titled her article, "Step-ins for the Amazons," wondering why Pavlichenko saw such questions as insulting, pondering, "Isn't it a part of military philosophy that an efficient warrior takes pride in his appearance?" Pavlichenko was dumbfounded. "There is no rule against it," she responded, "but who has time to think of her shiny nose when a battle is going on?" The New York Times dubbed her the girl sniper. Other newspapers noted that she wore no lip rouge or makeup of any kind, and that there isn't much style to her olive green uniform. Pavlichenko was most frustrated that anyone could consider shining armor a possibility in wartime. She had suffered 4 wounds during service. Her first husband had been killed by a German shell. On her very first mission, a fellow sniper had been shot next to her as they set up positions. She challenged an especially sexist reporter to a fistfight. When asked about her underwear, she responded, "I am proud to wear the uniform of the legendary Red Army. It has been sanctified by the blood of my comrades who've fallen in combat with the fascists." But Eleanor Roosevelt saw something different. The two women quickly became lifelong friends. The First Lady invited Pavlichenko to join her on a tour of the United States to speak to Americans about her experiences as a woman in combat. Over the following months, they visited 43 American cities together. Slowly, Pavlichenko began to find her voice, holding people spellbound with stories of her youth, the devastating effect of the German invasion on her homeland, and her career in combat. By the time the tour reached Chicago, Pavlichenko had transformed from awkward diplomat into powerful speaker. "Gentlemen," she said to large crowds, "I'm 25 years old, and I've killed 309 fascist invaders by now. Don't you think, gentlemen, that you have been hiding behind my back for too long?" Her words settled on the crowd, then caused a surging roar of support. The message was unmistakable. Soviet women were fighting and dying, while American men debated intervention. The psychological impact was profound. The United States government presented her with a Colt semi-automatic pistol. In Toronto, Canada, she was presented a Winchester Model 70 rifle equipped with a Weaver telescopic sight, now displayed at the Central Armed Forces Museum in Moscow. On November 21, 1942, Pavlichenko visited Coventry, England, accepting donations of 4,516 from local workers to pay for 3 X-ray units for the Red Army. The friendship between Eleanor Roosevelt and Pavlichenko deepened during this tour. At Hyde Park, the Roosevelt estate in New York, Eleanor even altered a set of her own pajamas for Pavlichenko, who was surprised a president's wife possessed such skills. As Pavlichenko changed, Eleanor caught sight of a long, reddish, forked scar arcing from shoulder to spine. When Eleanor asked about it, Pavlichenko replied it was shrapnel from Sevastopol. The First Lady impulsively hugged me and brushed my forehead with her lips, saying, "What dreadful ordeals you've had to endure." American folk singer Woody Guthrie was so moved by Pavlichenko's story that he wrote Miss Pavlichenko in her honor. Miss Pavlichenko's well known to fame. "Russia's your country. Fighting is your game. The whole world will always love you for all time to come. 300 Nazis fell by your gun." Return and aftermath. Reflecting on her visit to Washington, Pavlichenko summarized her impact in her memoir. "We delegates spoke about the war with too much passion, too much emotion. The war, which had previously been distant and incomprehensible to the Americans, suddenly acquired visible features. It would be 2 more years before a second European front opened in Normandy, In another year, still before the Nazis were defeated. Whether Pavlichenko's tour directly influenced American policy remains debated. But she gave the Eastern Front a human face. Upon return to the Soviet Union, Pavlichenko was promoted to major and awarded the Gold Star of the Hero of the Soviet Union, the USSR's highest military decoration. She also received the Order of Lenin twice. Pavlichenko never returned to combat. Instead, she trained other Red Army snipers until the war's end in 1945. 2 commemorative Soviet postage stamps were printed in her honor, one in 1943 following her battle career, and another in 1976 following her death. After the war, she completed her studies at Kiev University. Earning her degree in history and becoming a historian, she worked as a research assistant for the Soviet Navy, but peace did not bring healing. Pavlichenko struggled with alcoholism and what we now recognize as post-traumatic stress disorder. The memories of fallen comrades, particularly Alexei Kitsenko, haunted her. In 1957, Eleanor Roosevelt visited Moscow. Despite restricted agendas and Soviet handler protests, Eleanor insisted on visiting her old friend. She found Pavlichenko living in a small 2-room apartment. With the handler nearby, the two spoke with cool formality in Pavlichenko's front room until the ex-sniper made an excuse to pull Eleanor into the bedroom. Out of the handler's sight, Pavlichenko threw her arms around her visitor, half laughing, half crying, telling her how happy she was to see her. In whispers, the 2 old friends recounted their travels together across America 15 years before. On October 10, 1974, Lyudmila Pavlichenko died from a stroke at age 58. The story of Lyudmila Pavlichenko requires separating propaganda from reality, mythology from documented fact. 309 confirmed kills, each verified by a witness or commanding officer. Since she often worked alone, however, and every kill had to be verified, her actual number may have been closer to 500. By comparison, Vasily Zaitsev, Russia's other famous World War II sniper immortalized in Enemy at the E Gates, killed 225 enemy soldiers. During the Battle of Stalingrad, the Soviet Union utilized Pavlichenko brilliantly. For propaganda purposes, Soviet military authorities chose her because she satisfied particular requirements. Authentic sniper, representative of communist youth, articulate university student with security service connections through her father, but her biography was massaged for public consumption. Although presented as having lost husband and child to the Nazis, in reality, she was a single mother with a son raised by her grandmother when she volunteered. Yet beneath the propaganda lay undeniable truth. She did kill 309 enemy soldiers. She did survive 75% casualty rates that killed most female Soviet snipers. She did engage in deadly counter-sniper duels and win all 36 encounters. Her expertise revolutionized sniper tactics. As an instructor at sniper school, she trained numerous snipers, sharing strategies that became core to Soviet and later global sniper programs, focusing on stealth, aim, and psychological warfare. Her impact extended beyond military effectiveness. She challenged cultural narratives about women in combat. Her visit to the United States, though sometimes dismissed as propaganda, raised awareness about women's capabilities in roles traditionally reserved for men. The film Battle for Sevastopol portrays her life, capturing the horrors of war and her extraordinary feats as a sniper, cementing her place in popular culture. The truth behind Lady Death, the IC, romantic image of the lone female sniper terrorizing Nazi forces, obscures more complex realities. Soviet female snipers operated within organizational structures. They received training, support, and direction from military command. Pavlichenko was part of sniper teams, not always working alone. The Eastern Front's brutality exceeded Western imagination. Hitler aimed to exterminate Soviet and Polish people, sparing only those needed as short-term slaves. Soviet snipers were not sport hunters. They were defenders fighting genocidal invasion. The 309 confirmed kills represent 309 individual human beings. Some were fanatic Nazis, many were conscripted soldiers following orders. The moral complexity of war rarely appears in propaganda narratives. Pavlichenko understood this complexity. Eleanor Roosevelt recalled, "There is something very charming to me about the young Russian woman, Junior Lieutenant Lyudmila Pavlichenko. She has suffered, and is suffering something which is universal, and binds all the world together regardless of language. The suffering was universal. The killing took psychological tolls that statistics cannot measure. The alcoholism and PTSD that plagued Pavlichenko's post-war life demonstrated that even Lady Death was profoundly human. Conclusion. The sniper and the First Lady, two women. Different worlds. Unlikely friendship at Eleanor Roosevelt, American aristocrat, human rights advocate, First Lady of the world's emerging superpower, Lyudmila Pavlichenko, Ukrainian working-class history student, Soviet sniper, survivor of hell, their friendship, maintained through Cold War tensions, correspondence about family news and interesting literary items, and a stolen moment in a Moscow bedroom away from Soviet handlers, represented something beyond politics. It represented recognition of shared humanity during history's most destructive conflict. Pavlichenko's 309 kills changed military history. Her 1942 American tour influenced public opinion. Her survival inspired millions. Her post-war struggles reminded us that warriors are human, but perhaps her greatest legacy was demonstrating that courage, skill, and determination transcend gender. That women could perform in combat roles men claimed only they could fill. That outdated assumptions about female capability were exactly that, outdated. The Soviet Union exploited this for propaganda. Yet the underlying truth remained undeniable. When Nazi Germany invaded, threatening extermination of Soviet peoples, women like Lyudmila Pavlichenko picked up rifles and fought back with deadly effectiveness. She represented a bracing new form of womanhood that Pavlichenko embodied and which would be required to win the war. Today, Pavlichenko's name appears in military history alongside the deadliest snipers of all time. Museums display her rifles. Postage stamps bear her image. Films dramatize her story. Historians debate her tactics. But the measure of Lyudmila Pavlichenko cannot be reduced to kill counts or propaganda value. It must account for the 24-year-old student who volunteered when her homeland faced existential threat. The sniper who lay motionless for days stalking enemy marksmen. The woman who confronted American sexism with devastating directness. The survivor who struggled with demons that killing created. The friend who risked Soviet displeasure to embrace Eleanor Roosevelt in a Moscow bedroom. 309 confirmed kills. 8 months defending Sevastopol. 36 sniper duels won. 4 combat wounds survived. 75% casualty rate overcome. 1 enduring friendship with America's First Lady. The numbers tell part of the story. The humanity tells the rest. And 83 years later, Lyudmila Pavlichenko remains exactly what she became in 1942. Lady Death, the deadliest female sniper in history, and a symbol of courage that transcends propaganda, politics, and time.